with a brief introduction of what eTIMS is. And just to explain briefly, eTIMS is a software that enables taxpayers to generate invoices that are compliant, that are KRA compliant. And we started off as eTIMS generating invoices for VAT registered taxpayers. But recently we have rolled out to other tax heads, which means now you can generate invoices whether you're VAT registered or not. So we started with TIMS, which was device-based, is still in existence, and taxpayers using TIMS are deemed as compliant as far as KRA is concerned. Recently, to be precise, last year, February, we rolled out eTIMS, which now is more or less like TIMS, but this one is software-based, and it has different solutions. Cynthia, next slide. So like I had mentioned, it is a software that allows taxpayers to generate invoices electronically. Next. So you might be asking yourself, why are we introducing eTIMS? Why don't we just stick with TIMS? We are introducing eTIMS because it is free, because it simplifies tax filing returns, and then it is flexible. It is flexible in this way. There are different solutions that are tailor-made for each and every one of us, and we are able to onboard on either, so long as it is our preference. Then it builds compliance. It is free and it's easy to onboard. So most of us will be compliant as far as KRA is concerned and invoicing is concerned. And then it has stock module. It's just like an accounting system where you're able to input your stock and you're able to control everything, the stock in and stock out. Next. So who are we focusing for eTIMS? We are focusing eTIMS to all traders, whether VAT registered or not VAT registered. We are focusing on the salons, mama mbogas. We are focusing on small traders, big traders, everyone. We are not leaving out anyone in this in this solution of eTIMS. Next. So we, like I had mentioned earlier, we do have several eTIMS solutions. And by solutions, I mean what taxpayers are able to use to do their invoices. And this one is determined by the device that you have. As much as it's software based, it will require you to have an existing device, for example, a computer, a laptop, a phone, a PDA machine, and such. So these are the solutions that we currently have. One, we have the eTIMS simplified solution, and this is a solution that is hosted on eCitizen. So you just, if you have an eCitizen account, you just log into your account and then you go to KRA services, then you go to invoicing, and then you can activate your eTIMS invoicing account. Then we have the eTIMS client, and this one is a software that is installed either on your laptop, on your desktop, or on your mobile phone, a smartphone, or a PDA machine or a PDQ machine. eTIMS installation. Number three, we have the eTIMS online portal. The online portal is just like iTax, but this is eTIMS. So you create an account, an eTIMS account, you log into your account, and then you can now do your invoices in the account. For the online account, you can only do services invoices, and you are not able to do bulk invoices. So for taxpayers issuing bulk invoices, we request them to use the eTIMS client, or they can use number 4, which is system to system integration. By system to system integration, we mean taxpayer has an accounting system, for example, QuickBooks or Sage, and they would want to still use the accounting system. So what we do, we integrate the accounting system with the eTIMS system through now the system to system integration, which is the fourth solution that is offered by eTIMS. Next. So number 1, the solution that I had mentioned on number 1, which is the eTIMS simplified solution, it is only offered to non-VAT taxpayers. These are taxpayers who are not registered for the VAT, and also they are sole proprietors, or they use their own PIN, their own personal PINs for transaction. And then they also do not issue bulk invoices, or they have minimal transactions. You can access this solution on eCitizen, and the URL is ecitizen.kra.go.ke. You can simply log into eCitizen and go to KRA services, then click on invoices. We do also have a USSD, which is still under the eTIMS simplified solution. This one has been recently rolled out. And to use the USSD, you click *222#, and then you select option 5. It's very simple. You just follow the prompts, and you're able to issue an invoice. You first register, and then now you can go back and issue an invoice, which is a KRA compliant invoice. Yes, and can be validated. The invoice comes with a QR code that can be validated to ensure that indeed it is a KRA compliant invoice. Next slide. So to explain further on number 2, which was eTIMS client, like I had mentioned, we have to install the software on a device, taxpayer's device. It can be a phone, it can be a laptop, it can be a tablet, it can also be a desktop or a PDA machine. A PDA machine is it's a machine such like a PDQ, the ones that we used to withdraw from agents, bank agents. It's like a PDQ machine. I don't know if we can see the photo, but this PDQ machine or PDA machine has to be an Android machine. The version is version 8. And then for the desktop laptop, they have to be Windows. And the Windows, the eTIMS is compatible to Windows 10 and above. Then for the phones also, we are currently able to install on Android phones version 8 and above. The same applies to the tablets. So this solution, the eTIMS client, is flexible enough to accommodate both services and goods. So if you're a taxpayer who is in whose nature of business is both goods and services, you are advised to onboard on the eTIMS client so that you have that freedom. You're able to invoice services, and you can also invoice goods. It also comes with a stock management module, which is very beneficial to our taxpayers because they are able to keep record of their stock movement. Next slide. So we also talked about eTIMS online portal, and this one is suitable to taxpayers in the service sector. You just, after you've created an account, you've requested for service, and the same has been approved from our side. Now going forward, you just log into your account, and then you invoice from the account. So this one is flexible enough because you can log in from any device. It does not tie you to a certain device. Then we have number 4, which is system to system integration. And this one allows you to continue using your existing accounting system by just integrating your accounting system with the KRA eTIMS system. For this one, we do have third-party integrators, and they are published on our KRA website. And for you to be able to onboard on this one, you're supposed to go through the third-party integrator so that they integrate the systems, your system and the KRA system. For the system to system, you might incur a cost because we are not the ones doing it, but we have approved the third party integrators to be able to integrate the systems. Next slide. So this is how you access the eTIMS taxpayer portal, and this is the same portal where you sign up and register, whether the eTIMS online, eTIMS e-client. You still have to go through the system. You submit your registration. Then after approval, we install. If it's in e-client, we install. If it's online, you continue using the same account to generate your invoices. It is accessible on Google. You just type etims.kra.go.ke. Next. So once you are on eTIMS taxpayer portal and you want to sign up, the first place you click is sign up. The portal is in such a way it allows you to log in if you already have an account, or sign up if you're a new or you have not registered yet. So once you click sign up, there's a button for you to enter your PIN number, and then you verify the PIN number. Next. After you click on verify, it validates all your details as per your PIN registration on iTax. And then now you create a password and an OTP is sent to your registered number, the one that you registered in iTax. You validate the OTP and you finish the sign up process. The next process is now to upload your ID and form, whereby you're required to log in to the portal with the password that you created and your KRA PIN number as the username. Once you log in, you go to service requests. You request for the service that you require. It could be online, it could be e-client, it could be system to system, depending with your nature, with the nature of your business. So once your request service tab, it's when you're requested to upload your ID, and this should be the business owner's ID, both sides. And then after ID, you upload the form. This is the eTIMS commitment form, and the form is available in the KRA website under publications. Once you do this, you submit, and the request comes to our end, whereby we approve, and now you can proceed with invoice generation. Next slide. So this is the how to onboard. I had already talked about it. You log into eTIMS, you click service request, you upload the documents like I had mentioned, and then you click send. Then next, we configure the software. If your request was for a client, we configure your software, and then we show you how to generate the invoices. And now you can start generating and transmitting invoices to our end. If it's online, we approve, and then we show you how to log into the account and generate invoices. Next. So if you want to learn more about eTIMS, you can get the materials from the KRA website. You go to KRA website, and then you go to the eTIMS. There's eTIMS folder. Everything about eTIMS is there. You can learn more about it. There are user guides that you can follow to even do self-integration, self-installation for a client, or self-registration for the online one. For integration, you strictly have to engage a third-party integrator. Next. So we have had a public notice that was gazetted, and this notice was the main communication was that by 31st March 2024, all traders should be invoicing using eTIMS. So that's why it's very important for you to onboard on on all the either solutions mentioned earlier. It could be eTIMS Online, it could be system to system integration, it could be the simplified ones. Just ensure that you onboard on eTIMS so that you're able to comply as per this public notice. Next. So our offices are in JQuat Towers. Although you're able to get these services from any office, any KRA office near you, we do have champions who have been trained and are ready to support you for when you require the assistance. You can also send in an email to teamsupport@kra.go.ke, or even give us a call on these numbers that are listed on this slide. The training, rather the presentation ends there, but we do have others lined up. We do have a demo on a simplified solution, how to onboard on the simplified solution, and how to generate invoices on the simplified solution. This including the eCitizen, ePOS, eTIMS solution, and the USSD. If you have questions, we kindly encourage you to use the chat, and our colleagues will be able to assist you accordingly. And next, we will have Martin, who will take you through the process of onboarding on eCitizen and also onboarding on the USSD. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Martin Osoro. I'll be taking us through the second part of our presentation, which is the Q&A, as well as the live demos. So I hope I'm audible enough, and if I'm audible, since I can see we've all raised our hands, I'll just ask that we put those hands down so that you confirm to me you can hear me. All right, fantastic. So I will begin with the eCitizen demo. Just 1 minute so that I can begin sharing my screen. Okay. So this is how our landing page for the eCitizen solution looks like. But in our case here, we'll use our internal test environment just for purposes of illustration. But to get here, you launch the URL that Bernadetta shared with us, the eCitizen.kra.go.ke. It is again important to insist that this solution, the simple solutions as we call them internally, are meant for our small taxpayers. So these are sole proprietors who are trading with their personal pins, and those ones who do not have a VAT obligation attached to the pin. So for our eCitizen solution, it follows logic that for us to be able to access it, we must have an eCitizen account. So if there's anyone who wants to use our simple solutions and they do not have an eCitizen account, the first thing that they do is that they sign up on eCitizen. And even from this page, the button on our top right, register pin, where our cursor is another point of entry that we can make to register on eCitizen. So if we do not have an eCitizen account, the first process is to register that account. And once you've now registered the account, you can proceed. So for those who have the account, once they land on this page, then they will begin the sign-in process. So they'll click on sign in. And this is the screen that will appear. I'll try to go a bit slow so that we all get the steps before we launch into the Q&A. Hopefully, I think we are projecting to be done by lunchtime. So once you are on this page, you will enter either the email address that you have used to register, or you will enter your ID number. So in this case, we'll use an ID here on our test environment. So we'll enter the ID number, and then we will enter the password that we will have created during the sign up process. So the password does have a format. So as you can see on the screen, the password will need to have a series of letters, special characters and numbers, and one of the letters will have to be in caps. So it's important to note that that is the format of the password, lest it will not allow us to proceed. So once you have indicated both your ID number and your password, you then sign in. So in our case, as you can see, the password might have an issue. What you can then do is the forgot password, where you will again indicate your ID number and an OTP will be sent to your number, the registered number, and you will just you will then type in the OTP, and it will allow you to reset your password. So we will just do that. So once we've reset our password, we'll just come back in, and this time we log in properly. Click on sign in. So once we've signed in, it again prompts us to receive an OTP. So the OTP will either again be sent to your email address or it will be sent to your phone number. So in this case, again, you can just simply choose that it's sent to the phone number. And we again type it in. Yes, so we have now actually logged in into our eCitizen account. So once you've done that, you again launch the eCitizen page. In this case, we'll launch the test environment. So after you've logged into your eCitizen page, you'll simply again open our KRA eCitizen page, click on sign in, and this time you can see it's now showing us our registered accounts. So in the case of a sole proprietor, you'll just proceed with your personal account. So you'll click on the small arrow, click again on the small arrow, and this is now going to be the landing page. So this page that we are now seeing is the KRA page on eCitizen, and it allows us to do a number of things. As you can see on the menu on the left, it allows us to file our returns. It allows us to apply for a tax compliance certificate. It allows us to apply for amnesty. And finally, it allows us to do our invoicing. So we will then select the invoicing module by clicking on it and accept both the terms and conditions as well as the privacy policy. We encourage that you go through those two documents. These are URLs that you can launch. So go through the two documents before you accept. And once you've accepted them, you will now click on Activate e-invoicing. So once you've activated the e-invoicing, what it essentially means is that you have now acquired an ETR that you can now use for purposes of invoicing. Hence why on our page, we can now see in the black header in bold sales invoice, as well as this black button to create invoice. So for us to now launch the invoicing process, we will click on create invoice, and this page opens up. So what this page is, it's like a form that we will need to fill for us to be able to do our invoice. So the first section is the type of sale. So it could be business to business or business to customer. So you can choose whichever. The second section is where we upload a logo. So if you're a taxpayer with a business that has a logo, this is where you will upload your logo. And going forward, it's an enhancement that you are currently working on. That logo will be able to appear on the invoice. So your client will be able to see your logo. So the second section, or rather now we are getting into the more important sections. The first section is what we call customer details. So for customer details, this is where you will add the details of your customer. And how do we do that? We will simply click inside this cell, all right? And we now see this add new button. That is, I think this is orange, if I'm not colorblind. So if you want to add a new customer, as is the case for us here, since we have no current customer, we will click on the add new button. So once you've clicked on that button, it will now prompt you to indicate the PIN of your customer. And in this case, I will just input a PIN here again, and I will click on validate. So once I click on that, we get an output. So if this was on the actual eCitizen platform and not the test environment, we would from this pin would have gotten an output with the actual name of the taxpayer. So in our case, this is the test environment. So here we have a test output. So the other thing that you do once you have this output is that you add the phone number of this taxpayer. So you will indicate a mobile number there. For example, I hope that is not anybody's number in this meeting. And then you search for the code. So in our case, here it should be Kenya. So we select Kenya. Once we've added the phone number as well as the code, we will now click on add. As you can see, for our customer details, now the PIN of our client has populated. And for billing address information, this is just, you can indicate their physical address where this taxpayer is found. So we can say, for example, they are found in the I&M building, CBD. All right. So once you've added the billing address information, we now go to the other section, which is the invoice details. So for the invoice details, here we will now add specific information. One is the type of tax, which is automatic. I know it reads D. So what D indicates is that it indicates a non-VAT tax rate. So the users of this particular system are non-VAT, hence why this tax rate will be automatic. The next thing to do is to add the due date. And our due date really indicates the date that we project payment will be made, either full or partial payment. So in our case, we can say maybe we expect our payment to come at the end of the month. So we will just select 29 and then click on select. So it will choose a due date. So for add note here, again, you indicate what this section allows us to do is to indicate any information that we feel relevant about this invoice. So we can say, for example, partial payment expected. That's just an example. So whatever information that you will feel is necessary to include as you send this invoice, you indicate it under this section, add note under invoice details. So the next thing that we then do is we now proceed to our item details. So this is where we indicate exactly what it is that we are selling. So we will click on the add item tab. This populates. So you could either be selling an actual good, or you could be providing a consultancy or any other service to your clients. So for example, here we can say that we provided a service. So we can say paintwork. The product name will be paintwork. And then this section for description, we just explain a bit more on the service that we offered. So here we can say paintwork provided in the month of February. So this is really up to you. You will give a description that you best feels describes the product or the service that you have provided. This is simply an example. And then for our unit cost, we will say that our service costed 250,000. And this quantity, when we talk about a service, quantity talks about the frequency of provision of this service within a specific period of time. So since we've indicated it was in the month of February, it is for us to determine how in the month of February we provided this service once. So we will indicate that the quantity is 1. So once you've filled all these sections, you will now come and click on add. So we can now see that our item has now populated here. So the system allows again for us to factor in discounts because discounts are offered during the normal provision of business. And the discount can be offered either as a percentage or as a fixed amount. So if we were to say percentage and to say we are offering a 3% discount, you can see that our total amount has adjusted itself. And this amount is now the 250,000 shillings minus 3% to get 242,000. Or we can say that our discount is a fixed amount and say that, for example, we are offering a discount of 5,000 shillings. So you can see again our total reflects the 250,000 subtract 5,000 to get our total as 245,000. So it is allowed for you to offer a discount and it's up to you to determine how big the discount is. So the last section is terms and conditions. And we do know that there are those taxpayers who deal with services which come with terms and conditions. So an example would be for those who sell goods, maybe they can say that a good once sold, it cannot be returned. So that's an example of a term and condition. Or you can say that once a good has left the shop, payment is always expected to be made within 7 days. Or once a good has left the shop, a return can only be done within the first week and etc. So if you have any kind of term and condition, that is where you indicate it. If you have none, you leave that section blank. So the other section is the select payment method. So for this, we can, because we anticipate that these are small traders, so even their payment methods are a bit not very sophisticated. So it's why the provision is either M-Pesa or cash. But even if you're expecting to receive money through bank transfer or check, the system still allows you to select cash. It is still fine. So once we have filled in all these sections, we now come to the top of the invoice. So for this to become an official invoice, we will now click on save. So what it does, you can see there's a notification that has popped up that the invoice has been saved successfully. And this is now a preview of how our invoice looks like. And you can see that this section, it shows us who has invoiced. This section again shows us who our client is and their physical location, for example. And then we have our invoice number, and we also have our invoice date. So if you've generated the invoice and you are to tell your customer to scan this QR code, then they will be able to see an output that shows them the invoice details, and that is a way that they can use to confirm the validity of the invoice. So when you now want to have the actual invoice, again, we will now click on this download button up here for our invoice to download. And once it has downloaded, here it is. So once it has downloaded, it's just the same as how it was in the preview. You can now share this with your customer, and that way it will mean that you have now done the full invoice process. So that is it for our EPOS, and we'll now go straight to the USSD. For our USSD, we will not be sharing the screen because it is a mobile-based app. So for those ones who will want to onboard that, the USSD is pretty easy. All you'll need to do is to dial *222# for those ones who are following. So once you've dialed your *222, it has to be a Safaricom number. That is because we have partnered with Safaricom, and we shall seek to partner with more mobile companies. But for now, yeah, it's offered by and hosted on the Safaricom. So we will dial *222#, and once we've dialed that, for those ones who will have dialed, you will see that it is again almost like an eCitizen menu. So for us to now do the invoicing bit, we will have to first sign up. So we will select section 5, which is now what pertains to KRA. So it is under the title tax payment KRA. So we will launch 5. And then it will ask us to choose a service. So it is either you want to do a payment to KRA for an amount you may be owing, or you want to do a sales invoice, or you want to do a credit note. So in our case, we will simply click on number 2, which is sales invoice. So once you've done that, it will prompt you to enter your ID number. So you will enter the ID number. Then you will click on send. You will then have to indicate your date of birth. This is just for purposes of ensuring that the ID number is linked to the date of birth, just to ensure that there's no kind of impersonation going on. So you will enter your date of birth, and then it will ask you to now confirm your details, to which you will select confirm, which is option 1. So once you've selected option 1, it will again close. So you will dial the *222# again. The process that we have just done is an onboarding process, just to make sure that you've registered your number and that you can now be able to issue an invoice via the USSD. So you will dial the *222 again, and it will again bring us to the same menu. We will again select option 5, which is KRA. Under choose service, we will again now select sales invoice, because we want to do an invoice. Then we'll click on send. And now if you have onboarded correctly, once you've selected sale invoice, the next set of instructions will be to enter the customer name, PIN number, or the customer number. So if you want to now generate an invoice, you will be prompted to enter one of those details. So in this case, you can say that you're dealing with AA Limited, for example. Then you'll click on send. It will prompt you to enter the product or service name. So we can say that we are selling that particular company. We are selling them even desks. So you will indicate the product name. You will then indicate the quantity, which is 5, or whatever amount that you're selling them. So for me, my example, I'm selling them 5 desks. So I'll just indicate 5 and then click on send again. And then it will now prompt me to enter the price per item. So price per item, I will now indicate that maybe I am selling them 50 for 50,000 shillings, and then I will click on send. So once you've done that, it will now give you a final prompt to confirm all the details. So for example, the customer name or number, the product or service that you are providing, the quantity, the unit price, and the total amount. So once you have confirmed all of that, you will now click on confirm, which is option 1, and then you will click on send. So you will get a prompt like error from application, but even if you're to get that, it will still send you a notification from eCitizen. So it will tell you invoice number such and such has been created for you, and it will send you a link to the invoice. So why it's a link that you receive, this is simply because there might be those taxpayers whose phones are not internet enabled. They have those kabambes or the smaller phones. So the invoice will come as a link to that number, and they can then share this link with their customer. And when their customer now opens the link, they will be able to see the receipt, and they will also have the functionality to download the same. So up to there, I believe that we have now done the demos for both solutions. And I can see that a number of us have raised our hands. It's important to note we are having maybe a few challenges, technical challenges. So I'll just prompt us. If you have questions, kindly let's put them on the chat, and we'll be able to see them from there, and we'll be able to answer. So anybody with questions, just put them on the chat, please.
Okay, so thank you, Martin, for that, and Benedetta for the elaborate presentations. Like I was mentioning, those are indeed simplified solutions for individual business owners who might want to onboard either through eCitizen or through the USSD platform. So we have a few questions. Maybe I can begin with those that we have on our online audience watching us live on YouTube.
Don't worry, the chat is being enabled in a minute so that you can share the questions. Let's just be a bit patient. Yeah, it's happening in a minute.
Okay, thank you, Martin. I don't know if you can hear me. All right. Am I audible, please? I can't see any reaction. Martin, can you hear me? Hello, Martin. Can you hear me? Hello, Martin. Can you hear me? Martin, good afternoon. Can you hear me? We are trying to connect to his audio. Ni kama it has a problem.
Hello, Cynthia. Can you hear me?
Yes, Martin, we can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you as well. So I think we can just try unmuting our taxpayers.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that if the chat is not working, we can just answer their questions live.
thank you.
Okay.
So maybe we can start with Duncan. Duncan, your hand is up. Maybe you can unmute yourself and go ahead. Okay, since he's not ready, maybe we can move to Harrison. Harrison Muthuri, if you're still with us, you can unmute and ask your question, please. Okay, so meanwhile, as they get ready, Martin, I think we can pick a few questions received from YouTube and also our KRA TV page. So I'll ask the first question from Cliff. He's saying, kindly, would you mind elaborating on how I can amend the item details when generating an invoice through eCitizen?
Okay. I think let's just check our eCitizen platform again. So when we do an invoice and we save, then the only way we can amend that invoice is through what we call a credit note. But at the moment, this particular functionality is not live. It's still a work in progress. So what we usually advise as at the moment, when we are doing an invoice on eCitizen, before we click on save and we actually confirm the invoice details, let us just peruse our invoice. Let us make sure that the data that we have inputted there is as accurate as possible before we save. Because at the moment, as you've seen, we're still working on getting the credit note functionality up and running. And as a result, we cannot quite amend those details. But if you've done an invoice and you have noticed that it has an issue and you have already saved it and it has become an official invoice, what we can do at the moment is to generate another invoice, this time reflecting the correct invoice details. But the section for credit note is one that we are currently working on, and we are working to get it live so that our taxpayers can derive the maximum utility of this system. Back to you, Cynthia.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Okay, I'll move on to Richard, and he's saying he was going step by step as you are doing the USSD onboarding, but he received a message saying, sorry, this service is not available right now. So he's wondering if the function is on for the USSD. There was that error that he received, sorry, this service is not available right now.
That kind of error sometimes comes when there might be a capacity issue, but our USSD solution has been live, and taxpayers are onboarding that solution and they are invoicing. So it's an easy step-by-step process. It's easy to follow. So if you're having, maybe you may be having some capacity issues now, but I'll encourage our taxpayer to just attempt to onboard again in a matter of minutes. Probably they will now be able to go the whole process. Back to you, Cynthia.
All right. Thank you for that. Another question from Mary. She's wondering, after you have generated the invoice and then you click on save, does it automatically send that invoice to the customer's email, or you have to download and then again send?
Okay, thank you for the question. And just a further clarification on the previous question, Cynthia.
Yes.
We advise our taxpayers to just make sure that they have some airtime on their line. Sometimes that is usually another issue that might cause the process not to quite go through.
Okay, I think
Coming
that's, yeah,
to
thank you.
okay, coming to the question on the eCitizen solution again. If I can just share my screen. I can just share my screen so that we can come back here under invoice, and then we select view. Let's just create another invoice so that I can illustrate something. No? So again, we say our customer is such and such. This time our due date is still the end of February. And
Maybe
then this
Martin, you can request the person at the background to maybe lower his tone a bit.
Okay, sorry
Somehow
about that.
distractive. Yes, please.
Okay. So, sorry about that. So for our product, this time we'll say maybe we are selling them shoes again. And this time the item description, we can say it's official shoes or whatever. And we'll say that we sell that pair of shoes at even 15,000 and the quantity is one. And we add. So as I was illustrating before, there's save, and then there's also this option for save and send. So for save and send, we'll simply now come and select save and send. So what this does, there's this section up here. You can see it says send email to. So this send email to, this is going to be the email address of our customer, and we include us subject to the email. So we'll say it's invoice from AA Limited or whatever your business name is. And then you'll put a short body. So what this does is that it will send a notification to the email address of our client. It will not send the actual invoice. It will just send a notification that an invoice has been generated by, for example, in our case here, it's Lean Zero, and the invoice is from so and so person. So they will be able to see that they have been invoiced. The actual invoice will still have to be shared by the taxpayer to the client, because again, this invoice does belong to both the taxpayer and their client, because both of them will have to have records. So the first person to gain custody of this invoice will always be the taxpayer or the one who's doing the invoicing. After which they will now share the invoice with their client on whatever platform. It could be they can share it on WhatsApp, they can share it on email, they can even print the actual invoice and share it with them that way. So that is going to be to the discretion of the taxpayer. So back to you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Martin, for that clarity. So we have our audience that's watching us live on YouTube. We appreciate for logging in. We are sorry that some of you might have been locked out due to the, I think there was a way the meeting was set. Our apologies for that. It kept the participants at 100, but we are thankful for the live chat that we have and those that are watching us live on KRA TV. So I'll start with At Home Hunters. He had a question. They have a question on. Let me just read it. How do I get an eTIMS invoice from a supermarket, into brackets office supplies, Kenya Power, Nairobi Water, and Safaricom, airtime and internet for costs incurred in the course of the business? And they have an additional question on how do they claim expenses from, say, boda boda, casual cleaners, matatu fare, etc., when no invoice is issued. Initially, they're saying they'd simply prepare a petty cash voucher for such expenses. So, Martin?
Yes, Cynthia. Those are very astute questions from our taxpayers.
Yes.
So for the first question that really pertains to do with government entities and also Safaricom, which is a private player, the provision in law for the onboarding of eTIMS cuts across everybody. So be it a government entity, be it a private entity, the expectation is that everybody onboards eTIMS. So we are currently working with our government entities, including Kenya Power, including even Kenya Ports Authority, the counties, in order to be able to onboard them onto eTIMS. And going forward, I think this will no longer be an issue, because as we are saying, this is a provision in law. So we are currently working with all these entities, Safaricom included, to ensure that they become compliant in the shortest amount of time possible. The second question, I think there's also the question about the supermarket before I go to the borders. So when you are at the counter, there's two kinds of purchases that you may do. Okay. So there's going to be a VAT purchase that you may do, or you will just do a normal purchase and then you can go and resupply. So if you do a normal purchase of items, okay, the invoice that you will receive in a supermarket, particularly be it a Naivas or be it a Carrefour or these other supermarkets, is a compliant invoice. Okay, this is because they have already onboarded what Bernadetta mentioned earlier as the teams regime. So for them, they already integrated the system with teams. So the invoices that they will issue you will be compliant. But the rider will always be, if you are claiming these things, uh, they have, particularly if you're claiming them as a business expense, then they have to be wholly and fully attributable to the business. You cannot buy something for personal consumption and you go and you include this in your returns for your business expense. That becomes an offense. So even when you're purchasing in a supermarket, if it's wholly and fully attributable to your business, then that invoice that you will receive is actually a compliant invoice. The second kind of purchase that you may do is a VAT purchase. So you might walk into a supermarket and you buy goods that accrue VAT. So yet again, that invoice will still be a valid invoice. Another qualifier is that on this invoice, you will indicate to the teller at the pay point that you want to claim using that invoice. So their systems are configured in such a way that there's an allowance for your PIN and your name to be added. So for any invoice that is going to be claimed, your name and your KRA PIN number have to appear on the invoice. And at the supermarket till pay station, their systems are configured to allow for such an eventuality. The second question was to do with boda bodas, matatus, and basically other expenses that accrue from petty cash. So this is a question that we have fielded quite widely from a number of taxpayers. So what I will advise our taxpayers is that there are some regulations that are currently being drafted, the electronic tax invoice regulations, and these regulations will give us better guidance of how to handle some of these transactions, for example, the boda bodas, the matatus. But when we again go a bit into the nitty gritty, it depends again on the kind of transaction. If it's a delivery service that you are receiving from a boda boda rider, we now again have the simple solution that the boda boda rider can onboard for them to issue an invoice. So, but generally, we are waiting for those draft regulations to be published and officially gazetted. After which, it will give us a better guidance on how we proceed when we are handling expenses that particularly accrue from petty cash. So let's just keep our eye out. Those regulations are going to come out anytime. So back to you, Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin, for that. I think you have been so elaborate about that question, and I'm sure you have answered the same concerns that the K Gateway had raised, similar questions to what you have already spoken about. But in case it's not clear, the K Gateway, you can always get back on the chat to seek more clarity. So I'll move on to Ray Ndirangu, he's asking if I'm already using the Teams machine, do I need to migrate to eTIMS?
Okay, yet again, another very good question. The answer is no. Uh, the Teams regime was the beginning of the implementation of eTIMS, of the electronic tax invoice management system. It was eTIMS is simply another phase of Teams. So if you are already using the machine, there is no requirement that you now switch to eTIMS, but you can switch if you so choose to. If it's as a result of you maybe feeling that eTIMS offers better functionality, or maybe you're having certain challenges with your Teams device and you feel eTIMS might be easier. So the only reason to migrate will just have to be a business decision that you make, but there is no prompting from us. And from where we sit, if you're on Teams, you are still a fully compliant taxpayer. So the answer is no. Back to you, Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martin, for that. I'll also move to Alexander News. Alexander has a question and he's asking, are trade associations exempted from issuing TIMS or EPOS invoices? Martin?
Yes, Cynthia. The answer to that is no. Trade associations are not exempted. Currently, we do have some exemptions for transactions. We do not have sector-wide exemptions, but rather we have specific transactions. So an example of a transaction that would be exempted is the payment of salaries and emoluments. So those are that's an example of a transaction that is exempted. Another example would be airline ticketing. So this is because that ticketing process is offered by a global body. So, or rather, hence that transaction ends up being exempted. But any other incidental charges that an airline ticketer will be incurring, those ones will have to run through eTIMS. So sector-wide exemptions do not exist in law currently. And just to even give further context, we do have a number of trade associations that have already onboarded. So there is no sector-wide exemption, only specific transactions. And yet again, those transactions will be better defined in the upcoming ETI regulations. So we watch out for that. But our take home should be there is no sector that is exempted, and there is no body that is, no trade association body, for example, that is exempted. We only have specific transactions that are exempted. Back to you, Cynthia.
All right. Thank you, Martin. Just a minute. Thank you for that clarity. We have a concern. Just a minute. Okay, so we have Nancy. I don't know why it's hanging a bit. Just a second, please. Okay. So I think, Nancy, you have retracted your message. So I cannot be able to get back to that. So I'll move on to James. James and Raza, maybe you joined in late. He's asking how as an individual without a company, how he can raise an invoice via eTIMS as an individual without a company. Maybe you can just take him through, as could be he joined a bit late.
That's okay. As an individual without a company, we now are providing what we call the simple solutions. So one is the eCitizen based solution, where you'll need to have an eCitizen account. And then through the URL ecitizen.kra.go.ke, you will be able to access that invoicing module. The second simple solution is the USSD, where we dial *222#. You will begin by selecting option 5, which is the KRA option. You will select sales invoice. It will prompt you to input your ID. It will prompt you to also indicate your year of birth, after which you confirm those details. So once you've onboarded that particular solution, whenever you want to invoice, you'll just be launching the *222# USSD. You select the KRA module, which is number 5. You select the sales invoice, and then you simply type in the details of your sale, and your customer will receive a link on your phone as an SMS, a link that you can then share with your customer, and they'll be able to download the invoice. So those are the two simple solutions that we are offering for our taxpayers, our small taxpayers who are sole proprietors. So it is important to note that these solutions are only available to sole proprietors and not companies. So there's also the third option is also the conventional eTIMS solutions. If you're dealing with a service, you will onboard what we call the online portal, which is a web-based solution. You'll simply type in the eTIMS.go.ke, the taxpayer portal, or you can also type in taxpayer portal. And by logging into that particular page, you will still be able to invoice. And lastly, the other option is the eTIMS client, and this is for a taxpayer who's dealing with goods. So we have an array of options for our taxpayers. So it is up to the taxpayer to choose which system they feel suits them best, suits their business operations, and to simply choose and to onboard. Back to you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for that. And James, I think you can always revisit our page, that is KRA TV on YouTube, or you can visit our website, www.kra.go.ke, to get the same message. It was actually, we are still running on live. So you can always revisit to get to know the step-by-step process at your own convenient time. So this recording is available. You can always revisit the page. So I'll move on to Lucy Njanja. Lucy, hi to you. She's saying she joined halfway, but she needs an elaboration on cash sales on eTIMS at the end of the month for a person who has a shop or a kinyozi and has a TOT, that is turnover tax obligation.
Okay, that's again another good question. So, what applies to Lucy and what applies to all our taxpayers? Whenever you do a sale, all right? Whenever you do a sale, for example, you've given somebody a haircut, you then issue them with an invoice. All right. So what this allows you is that it allows you to have a record of all the invoices that you've done. So you will also have an easier time reconciling your total sales for the month. And you pay the turnover, I believe it's at a rate of 3% of your turnover for the month. So you just continue that way. But the expectation will be when you do, like in this case, you give whoever walks into your barber shop a haircut, then you will have to record that particular sale because it is a sale. And then you will just have a copy of all the sales you've done for the month, which will, again, you see, become your turnover for the month. Then, based on that turnover, you will now do 3% and remit your turnover tax as you have been remitting. Back to you, Cynthia. Cynthia, maybe I'm not hearing you, but can you hear me, Cynthia?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, I
Yeah,
think I had not unmuted. Sorry about that.
no problem.
Okay, thank you. So I have this follow-up question from Mandeke Gathwe. He's saying, you had explained about the claiming of expenses, and he's saying, I paid for my Nairobi UBP on 2nd of January 2024. How shall we claim these expenses in our tax filing? Same with parking and Kiambu distribution. Kindly elaborate for me further.
Okay. Thank you for that question and for seeking clarification. All this, like the business permit, the unified business permit, and all these other costs that we incur to do business are expenses that are claimable in that particular year of business. I hope there we all agree. So, as I stated earlier, the requirement to onboard eTIMS cuts across both government and non-government actors. So when we talk about government, we are talking about parastatals, we are talking about ministries, we're also talking about county governments. So we are currently in the process of onboarding our governmental players. This includes those counties, so that they are able to issue or to even, for example, now for you to reissue you with that invoice, so that this invoice can now go to your income tax return and you'll be able to claim that expense. So it's an ongoing process and it's an ongoing engagement that we have with our government actors because they're also our taxpayers. So we are having an engagement with them, and we will soon receive guidance, all of us, as to how we are going to handle such expenses or how we are going to be able to expense such things in our returns. So again, I just advise that we remain patient as we work with our government actors to be able to also onboard them so that they may issue you with compliant invoices so that you may be able to claim that in your income tax returns at the end of the year. Back to you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Martin. So we have two more questions from John Awala and Lydia Mukohi. I'll start with John Awala. He's saying he owns a Mutumba shop, and his concern is that, as we know, not every client will provide their details when generating that invoice. So how will I be eTIMS compliant?
Okay, that's a good question again. So in every transaction, there are two parties. There's the buyer and there's the seller. So in our case, our taxpayer here is going to be the seller because they are the ones who are selling a service to their buyers. So what we are now saying is this. When your buyer walks into your shop to seek your services, they may want to claim this as an expense in their income tax return. Or if it's a VAT transaction, they might want to claim that as input VAT. So it is them to tell you that they want to claim and for you to include their details on the invoice. So it is not up to you to do that for them. It is going to be this buyer's decision if they want to claim that or not. So if they do not want to claim, then they will seek not to include their details on the invoice. But if they want to claim, they will tell you that they want to claim, and as such, you'll be able to include their details in the invoice. For you, as long as you are generating your invoices through eTIMS, when you are selling your service, then you are already compliant. And also, in such a, you can also find in the inverse that you are also a buyer in another transaction. Maybe you also have suppliers who provide you with critical inputs that you use in the provision of your market offering. So even for you to be able to claim now, because obviously this is an expense, you will have to give your details to your supplier. So that is how it becomes a chain. But if you have client who does not want to claim or does not intend to claim and they refuse to give the details, then that the onus is on your client, not on you. For you, as long as you're generating your invoices through eTIMS, then you remain in a compliant status. I hope I have clarified on that particular confusion. Back
Thank
to you,
you.
Cynthia. Yeah.
Yes, Martin. Thank you. I think that's very, very clear. So we'll move to the last but not least question from Lydia Mukuhi. And she's saying, when using the eTIMS simplified solutions as an individual, if you don't have any invoices during the month, do you still file monthly VAT?
Okay. Again, that is a good question. It's important to note, and I believe Bernadetta had mentioned it, but we can still emphasize it here. The simple solutions are not for VAT taxpayers. The simple solutions are for sole proprietors who are non-VAT, meaning that they do not have a VAT obligation. So for the VAT obligated taxpayers, you'll be required to onboard the other eTIMS solutions, the eTIMS client and the online portal solutions. So when it comes to filing, yes, it is allowed that in a month, maybe you do not have any transactions, be they purchases, be they sales, then you're allowed to file a nil return. But if you have purchases and you do not have any sales, you will be required to file for those purchases because even that is a transaction. So If then 0 transactions in that month, be it purchases, be it sales, then yes, you can file a nil return. So I hope that is clear. So the simplified solutions are tailored and geared towards our small taxpayers who deal with non-vatable supplies. So let us be cognizant of that particular distinction. Back to you, Cynthia.
Okay, so thank you, Martin. I think we have exhausted all the queries and concerns we had both on YouTube, on KRA TV, and also on our chat box. So we thank you so much for giving us insights into how we can be compliant as non-VAT registered taxpayers through the solutions that you've taken us through, the web option that is through eCitizen and also via USSD. And like you've confirmed, they are already live and you can be able to onboard either through eCitizen or via USSD and raise our or generate our invoices. So thank you so much, Martin, and also an appreciation to all our participants who found time to join us this afternoon. Our kind apologies once again for beginning late. We had challenges with the audio, but we have extended the time to cover all the questions that have been raised on our chat today. And we appreciate you for your patience and even for staying on board all the while to this time. So maybe Martin, I can give your team a minute or so to give us your closing remarks as we end the session.
Okay, Cynthia, thank you very much for the opportunity. So we did not begin in the best way, not in the way that we wanted, but I think as the session went on, we were able to regain our footing, and I believe today our taxpayers live here, or rather they leave this meeting with more significant knowledge on how to navigate these solutions as they seek to be compliant. So we also want to thank the taxpayers who are able to log into our sessions, either through Zoom or through our KRA TV page on YouTube. We sincerely appreciate you as our taxpayers. We, we always stand ready to assist you in any way that we can, just to ensure that you are in a compliant status. And I hope as our taxpayers live here, they live here going as our ambassadors. I think today, we usually have a reputation as KRA of being very scary people, but I think today we've debunked that. We've seen that we are very friendly. We are one of them.
Yes.
And we hope that that relationship continues for the betterment of the country. So from Benedetta and myself and the rest of the eTIMS team, we are thankful for you inviting us to this session, and we are hoping to have more engagements with our taxpayers. So thank you, good afternoon, and everybody have a great lunch and a great rest of the day.
Thank you. What a way to end the meeting. Thank you so much. We also appreciate you as our panelists for the day. Thank you for always coming through and even for extending the time so that every question or every concern that a taxpayer might have is addressed during the meeting. So like Martin has said, should you have further inquiries or any further support that you might need, their email is open. If I can just share it, it's team support at kra.go.ke. So you can always write to team support at kra.go.ke and you'll be able to receive feedback on your inquiry should you have any further on the same. So thank you so much. It's now lunch hour. I wish to end with a word of prayer. So we can pray. Almighty God in heaven, we thank you for the this session that you've had us, that you've led us through on how to be compliant, especially for those taxpayers that have not yet registered for VAT. And thank you for even the solutions that have been provided to us so that we can be compliant in one way or the other. Help us as citizens and as Kenyans to be able to absorb the information and even put it into practice so that we can be able to move our country forward. Thank you for the opportunity to learn. Thank you for our panelists and our participants. May you bless us this afternoon, even as we break. It's my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So thank you, Martin. Thank you, our participants. Have a wonderful afternoon. Until next time. Bye-bye.